Must be one hell of a show we're about to have here. It's the D-Train, Daniel Ehrenberg on the ones and the twos. Over there, Henry Papali wearing a stylish New York Mets cap and an all-black ensemble.
That I am. They are not a contender, but it's a nice hat. Welcome, everybody.
You gotta feel happy about Pete Alonso.
Yes. Did I see the news correctly? What did he's the rookie home run record or some shit like that?
Rookie home run record. Yesterday, Jerry Seinfeld tweeted that he wants to reboot Seinfeld just to do a sequel to the Keith Hernandez episode with Pete Alonso.
That doesn't sound like a great idea, but all right.
How about that? That's how much Jerry Seinfeld loves the New York Mets.
He really does love the Mets.
He loves the Mets. Sure. He loves cereal.
He loves coffee.
Does he?
Well, comedians.
He loves right. He loves underage women. Don't forget that. He dated a 17-year-old when he was 39. He loves bouffant hairdos.
Yes. That was a big thing for him.
He loves reaching into his refrigerator and grabbing some milk.
Yes.
He loves Superman magnets.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
He loves puns about bees.
I think it's funny because almost every time we've brought up Jerry Seinfeld on the show, you're like a huge fan of his, but I've never heard you do anything but just fucking trash him in a jokey way every time.
Because he's so funny. Fucking idiot. I love him, but he's an idiot and he's not that good a guy.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
In today's world, he's a fucking knight in shining armor. But I know
you're not wrong.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? It was like we were talking about James Cameron. You know, it's like, it's just a regular asshole.
Who's a better guy? Who would you rather be married to, James Cameron or Jerry Seinfeld?
You gotta go with Larry David of the two of those.
I didn't. That wasn't an option, Henry.
All right, fine. Of those two, Jeff Garlin, I think.
That's not an option either. Okay, go with Jeff Green. Okay.
Yeah, all right.
We're doing Before Sunset and Before Midnight today. Those are two movies about the same two characters chatting. One of them were in France, one of them were in Greece. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, I got my geography okay this week.
Yes, applause sign. Paris and Greece.
Greece.
Yeah, I was trying to think of where they are in Greece, but I probably couldn't pronounce it anyway.
I don't know where they are in Greece. I can only retain one place in my mind at one time, and I watched Succession last night, so my brain's all about Dundee, Scotland, baby.
Me too. Fucking great episode, great show.
Great episode. I could listen to Kendall rap all day.
L to the O. No, is it? L to the OG.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I ain't playing.
No, A-N playing.
A-N playing.
Yeah. Okay. Let's start it. Let's start with Before Sunset. This comes to us 9 years later from our previous episode, Before Sunrise. Richard Linklater is back to direct. This time he's got Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy in tow as his writing staff. Yeah. It was released July 2nd, 2004. Oh, 4th of July weekend. They were going to make the big bucks on this one, baby.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, they're like, all right, Wild Wild West tanked. Will Smith is no longer the king of 4th of July. You know who the next one is? Julie Delpy.
Wait. Yes.
All right, I had a budget of $2.7 million, pretty much what the last one cost with inflation, and a box office of $16 million, which was a bigger hit than the previous movie. All right?
I'm still impressed at the low budget on these things because of the locations and the crew and all that shit. It's impressive to me.
What's the budget? What are they spending money on?
Plane fare, accommodation,
location fees.
Location fees, plane fare, accommodations. You know, they're in fucking Paris, not cheap.
You don't know, man. I mean, you don't need any actors besides Julie Delpy and Ethan Hawke. Julie Delpy lives over there anyway.
That's a good point.
Ethan Hawke might be paying for his own plane.
And and Linklater's probably just having the crew like stay in a youth hostel. So yeah, it's probably like that.
A youth hostel. I would love it if I went to stay at a youth hostel and the crew of Before Sunset was in there.
Hey man, it's hard to sleep in this bed, huh? What are you doing over here? Vacation? No, I'm working on a movie.
We're filming these two assholes yap at each other for 80 minutes.
Director couldn't put up a few fucking pounds to get us into Paris Four Seasons.
Pounds? Is that what they got there in France?
No, they have euros.
God, I'm going to be a real ugly American this episode because, I've never been out of the country, and I don't know anything about what goes on over there.
Well, it used to be the francs, but then there's euros came about. So, it's hard to – there's a lot of chaos happening over in that area right now, mainly caused by our British friends. So it's hard to keep up. But, yeah, I believe it's the euro.
Okay, yeah, and Henry VIII, he beheaded one. And
Anne Boleyn.
Okay, great.
Very good, very good.
Thanks. What about the other Boleyn girl? What happened to
her? She was
got snubbed for an Oscar.
She became a Black Widow, I believe, because the other Boleyn girl was beheaded. So she became a Black Widow.
Oh, like that movie that's coming out soon.
Because she was in Boleyn, and the other one became a Black Swan. You understand what I'm doing there?
Oh, it's a Natalie Portman reference.
And a Scarlett Johansson reference, because they're both in fucking...
Ooh, there were a lot of references happening, and I don't do well with references.
Yeah, but they're from the movie you referenced. Jesus Christ.
I worked an 16-hour day yesterday, and slept with the lights on, and I'm still in my pajamas, so let's give me a break here.
No, I hear you. It's a morning a special... morning episode of 173 of the franchise.
Oh yeah, the franchise.
I'm your host, Henry Pollard.
We did that, right?
Yeah, we did. I was pretending we didn't do that even. Yeah. All right. Continue.
This movie came in at number 159 at the box office for the year of 2004. Came in... after Against the Ropes made slightly more money. Do you remember that movie?
I mean, I do, but yeah.
That was Meg Ryan at the tail end, man.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Playing
God.
like a boxing promoter.
Right. At first, I thought you meant in the cut.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
Against the Ropes. She was starting to look weird. People weren't into her anymore. She wasn't likable anymore because she cheated on Dennis Quaid with Russell Crowe, and everyone cared about that for some reason.
I remember that on the set of that hostage movie that he did. They did together.
Yeah, that's right. Taylor Hackford's Proof of Life.
Yes, saw it in theaters.
You did?
Yeah, I don't know why. Yep.
That's a crazy movie to see in theaters.
I don't know why I did. Who knows?
That's a generic movie, man. You could that movie could just be called Movie.
Movie in jungle locale.
Made slightly more than The Clearing. I don't really remember what that is. I feel like it might have something to do with Robert Redford.
Yes, I saw that. That's a good movie.
Oh.
Yeah,
okay.
I like that. I like that flick. Yeah.
All right. By the way, July 2nd, 2004, Before Sunset, I would have been like 2 weeks out of high school.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I was 25 years old and a few weeks from being 26. So, and that was actually, I had a summer college graduation. So that was about a month before I was given my valuable and hundreds of thousands of dollars later diploma. So it paid off. That was that time for me.
That's all right, man. I don't pay my student loans.
Neither do I.
It's no big deal. I was watching, it's premiere week this week, Henry. A lot of shows premiered. I watched this show on CBS called Evil. And part of the premise of this show is she's like paying off her student loans. Like, I'm serious. She's like this lady. She works as like an investigator for the city or something. And she has 4 daughters. And part of the premise of the show is she has to take this job as like a paranormal investigator because like they're bugging her about her student loans. And I'm like, lady, just don't pay them.
Yeah, it's true. Get a financial forbearance. It's funny that it has the very unbelievable thing of being a paranormal investigator, but the very believable thing of just being constantly fucking hounded. It's almost banal. Let's make a show about getting phone calls constantly robocalled about my loans all day.
Yeah.
But people can relate, so.
I related. It's a good show. It's by the Good Wife people.
All
right, Henry. I'm not going to sit here and recommend you a CBS show. I know you're not going to watch it.
No, I won't, but that's all right.
Okay. You want to do a 2004 list?
Yeah, let's do that. By the way, I have a big announcement to make, everybody. I wanted to stop everything in its tracks right now. Dan, I think it's important for me to get this out there. I've decided, it took me a lot of thought. I will be quitting The Walking Dead this year.
I can't believe you're still watching it. Good for you, Henry. Good for you.
I'm done. It premieres, I think, in a week, and I just can't do. I'm done. I really thought I'd be like the last guy doing it, and I can't do it anymore. I just don't care.
No, it's impossible to care about that show anymore. Jesus, I saw him on a show this week.
Really? He came back, huh? Okay.
Yeah, not Walking Dead. I mean, like a good show.
No, and I meant the real Jesus. He came back.
No. I meant Walking Dead Jesus. Yeah.
Where's he on?
He's on a show called Prodigal Son. He's playing his dad's a serial killer played by Michael Sheen.
Oh, all right. I like Michael Sheen.
Yeah, Michael Sheen's great.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, no, I'm done, folks. I can't do it. 9 years. I was on 2010. I fucking started with you. I started.
That's right. We were living together when that premiered.
No, we weren't, but close enough.
Season 2. Yeah, I remember watching some farm shit.
We watched. It was not when it premiered, but definitely for season 2. Yeah, we watched a lot of that shit together.
We used to watch that together and Celebrity Apprentice.
That's correct. Mm-hmm. That's correct. Oh well, we never saw it coming.
We really didn't.
No, really didn't. But anyway, yeah, I'm done. So that's that. All right. Let's do it.
I've got an old list here. I don't know if it's accurate because I forgot to make a new list, but here it is.
Okay.
All right. 2004 top 10. What's your number 10?
My number 10 is Primer.
Okay, mine is Dig.
My number 9, making its list debut, Before Sunset.
Oh, that's making its list debut? What's wrong with you? And why is it only 9?
Because I've never seen it before.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that. Oh, I'm excited to talk about it now. Okay, my number 9 is Anchorman.
My number 8 is Fahrenheit 9/11.
My number 8 is Team America: World Police.
All right. My number 7 is Kill Bill Volume 2.
My number 7 is Metallica: Some Kind of Monster.
Nice. My number 6 is Layer Cake.
My number 6 is Friday Night Lights.
All right.
Heavy hitters. These are the grand slams, the slap shots, the three-pointers, the touchdowns, the curling when the puck gets close to the circle. These are the heavy hitters of the franchise. Heavy hitters.
Anchor Man.
My number 5 is Before Sunset.
All right. My number 4 is Spider-Man 2.
My number 4 is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
My number 3 is Sideways.
My number 3 is Shaun of the Dead.
My number 2 is The Aviator.
My number 2 is Sideways.
And my number 1 is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Mine's Kill Bill V2. Okay. Let's do it. Let's fall in love. All right. Ethan Hawke. Jesse. He's in France. He is signing books at a local shop because he has written a novel that is about his time spent nearly 9 years ago with Celine.
Correct.
And who's there at the reading? Who's there? Who pops himself in the door?
Le Petit Celine is in the corner there, and he's very rattled at first, obviously, but I bet let's just go through it here.
He's actually less rattled than I thought he would be. I thought Ethan Hawke had an interesting reaction where it was half surprise and half almost like, yeah, that makes sense.
Well, yeah, right. I mean, and also he's like in the middle of signing books, so it's like a neat appearance and a good time to like bring her in there, you know.
A ghost from the past.
Yeah, and I had never seen this before, so oddly, one of the few like trilogies along with the Expendables where I have no, I haven't seen the middle one, and 80 minutes this thing,
you gotta love it,
and let's just go right there. I'll just go right there. This movie, I just absolutely adored this movie.
Yeah,
I adored it.
Only number 9 on your list, though.
Yeah, it shouldn't be. It should be much higher. I mean, I grabbed it and popped it in there, you know. But yeah, I mean, I was waffling a little bit between, you know, the first one and this one, but this movie's just in 80 minutes. It gets everything done. You know, whatever. They get together. They go on a walk. They basically go on a walk this time through Paris, and he stops her right away. So we'll talk about the narrative here, right? He said, "Were you there?"
Right. Okay, so we have to catch up with them. Yeah. Last we saw these two characters, they were putting Julie Delpy on a train and deciding to meet up 6 months later in the same spot on December 16th. And so it turns out that Julie Delpy's grandmother died that week, and she went to her grandmother's funeral, didn't show up in Vienna. Ethan Hawke, interestingly, lies at first and says
I love that
he didn't go either. Yeah. That happens a few times in this movie where, like, one or the both of them are playing it cool or something.
Yeah.
And we only find out that they lied later in the movie. It's interesting in movies, I think, when you can't 100% trust what the characters are saying, and not because of like an unreliable narrator, like this is fucking The Usual Suspects or something, just because that's what human beings do.
Yeah, I agree, and I found that to be the case not only about the meeting in Vienna, but almost about the sort of delay that you get as a viewer on their like marital status. Like they might have mentioned it a little earlier, but if they did, I missed it until they like really mentioned it. I'm like, oh, holy fuck. Like that never, you know what I mean? Like,
well, it's a thing, like, you know,
because remember, not only having not seen this movie, but having seen Before Midnight, I never knew who showed up or who didn't or anything ever. So watching this was like my first like, oh, so that's what happened. I never knew what happened. You know, I could have been anything.
By the end of the movie, I feel like we know everything that's happened. We get a good sense of what the relationship was. And part of that is that Ethan Hawke has been sort of harboring a love. They both have for each other, where it was like, oh my God, that's what love is. And then they've sort of moved forward in life and you know, it didn't seem like it was a once-in-a-lifetime thing at the time, but now they've had a bunch of further relationships, Delpy with a bunch of different people, and Ethan Hawke in a marriage with a kid named Henry.
Yeah, which I think is his son's name.
In real life?
Yeah, because when I met... and he came into the store that time, he was with his kids, and I remember him, I swear to God, I'm not making that up, I remember him like being like, Henry. He was in that little kids section.
Did you turn around and think he was talking to you and get excited for a second?
No, because he was actually like,
yes, Ethan.
No, because he was actually like looking at me and monitoring his kids. So sure. I already knew. But yeah, No, and she's with, I guess she's not married, but she's dating like a war correspondent.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Very
They're
much
actually living together, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, her whole thing was hard to discern in terms, but then it's easily figured out that I guess that she is not married, which is very interesting too, because it's continued into Before Midnight with the whole marriage idea itself. So she is not married, but in enough of a serious relationship where it would be an issue, but not as much of an issue as it would be for him, because he's married with a kid in the United States, and so all that. But
yeah, and we get the fallout of that in Midnight.
Right.
Okay, so the movie actually starts with a Julie Delpy song, which at the time I felt like I didn't need. But then the song at the end is so important that it kind of retroactively makes the first one okay to me.
And of course, I didn't know that it was Julie Delpy.
Oh, really? Okay.
Not at the beginning of the movie. How
well, I was watching it on Amazon Prime with the old X-ray feature, so I moved the mouse, and it was able to tell me what song was playing.
I watched it on Google Play, which does no such thing. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Well, but Amazon, you know, it's like you hear a song. Oh, that's a good song. Tell me what it is, Amazon. Amazon's like, here it is. Would you like to purchase it on Amazon.com?
You're like, no.
Yeah, I'm good. I don't need to own the Before Sunset soundtrack on CD. Then we get a little previously on Before Sunrise. Did you notice that? That's a franchise thing that doesn't show up that much.
No, it's true, and I liked it though. It's done in like a flashy kind of memory way, and I don't mean flashy in terms of showy, like just like flash frames of the prior film, and I dig that. Like
we get clips.
Yeah, with no audio, right? Like just kind of shots. Okay. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's good though. They work. They work. I didn't need them because I'm watching them in such quick succession, but I would imagine it's helpful if you've waited 9 years to view these films.
Right, totally. So at first, they're walking around Paris just in the daytime. The premise of this one is Ethan Hawke has a plane to catch back to America, but he's got a couple of hours before his plane, so he's going to use these hours to hang out with Julie Delpy, Celine.
Yeah.
And and I love that they set this movie in Paris in 2004 because America hated Paris in 2004.
That's right. And I was actually thinking about it because in the movie, not that it matters because everything to your point is accurate, but I think it's like 2003, right? Because the first one they say was 1994.
Oh, that's right. They do say it's the summer of '94. Yeah, I guess they're taking these movies when they film them rather than when they're released.
Right. And so 2003, of course, the year we invaded Iraq, and I thought about it too because I was in Europe in 2002. So the zeitgeist was probably very similar in France as it was in Germany where I was, where everywhere I walked, I was so embarrassed and felt like I was being judged and looked at, and I was even questioned.
Yeah. When at one point Julie Delpy tells Ethan Hawke, like, you're not one of those freedom fries Americans.
And I had a very similar experience really quick in Germany, man. I was having a beer with my friend that I was visiting, and we were in a whatever fucking beer garden or whatever. And these girls were briefly chatting with us, and they were fucking eyeing me, not in a good way. And my friend spoke German, and he said they want to know if you are if you support George W. Bush. And I said, Jesus Christ. I was like, tell them no, please. 9. And it happened a few times everywhere I went. And it was just like,
it's got to be even worse now, Henry.
Oh God, yes. And it was bad enough then that I had to walk around with that over my fucking, shoulder. But yeah, I know. So I actually I know what that's like. But yeah, now I wouldn't go there now. Forget it.
Oh, we're done. We can't go other places. It's too embarrassing.
Oh, I would not know. Not till he's gone. Forget it. Yeah. But yeah, I love the freedom fries line because remember that whole thing, the freedom fries. Oh.
Freedom toast. Yeah, that was so embarrassing.
For our younger listeners, they might not even remember that, but that was like a big deal. Like if you had any kind of any kind of cultural affinity or sympathy for like
France was not in support of the war in Iraq, and it was George W. Bush had the White House food menu changed so that French fries were listed as freedom fries. And French toast was freedom toast. Yeah, it was a crazy time.
Very mature time. Yes, very, very nice. Yes, yeah. I think it was very similar to during the Vietnam War, right, Dan? When Lyndon Johnson outlawed any Vietnamese food in the White House, and if he did call it, he would call it the domino effect noodles. That's what he would say. Domino effect noodles.
Boy, I'm gonna take your word for that one, Henry. It was a joke about the Vietnam War.
Yeah, it's true. All right. Anyway, yeah. Yeah, the freedom fries joke is good, and he just kind of says, yeah, no. But
at first, it's real cash. Like it's like these two people, like, hey, you. And they're talking like, how's it been? How's it going? Where were you? And it just gets like deeper and darker as it goes on. I think it starts to hit that point when they get on that boat together.
Well, that's like almost towards the end of the movie, but I think you're right. But
it's the second half of the movie. There's like long sections of this movie where they're just like getting to know each other and talking about politics, and like there's a part of me wants these movies to be really timeless, and not to talk about like freedom fries or something, but part of me also kind of loves that because there is this weird thematic thing about connection and the possibilities of connection and the encroaching technology that's making it easier but less special to connect with somebody.
Oh yeah, and to your point, I didn't think it was anachronistic when I heard the freedom fries joke or that things like that with the technology because it's written so
it's not
well.
Anachronistic, it's perfectly acronistic.
Yeah.
It's
but watching it now.
No, I know, but it does stand out. But if you really think about the outgoing themes of this movie and what they're trying to do here, it makes sense that it's in there. It doesn't feel superfluous.
It doesn't feel superfluous. Also, because what I was going to say was if these were the greatness of these movies is the contemporaneousness of the conversations. So if you're thinking about conversations that you also had at that time, they were conversations that happened. You can't edit or delete things that you said, so that's why they feel like such timely movies.
Fahrenheit 9/11 came out like 1 week before this movie.
Yeah, right. And but to your point about the getting into it, what they're talking about earlier is I loved and I found it so realistic because this has happened to me where when they first meet, like they're clearly avoiding what we all want to know. And Ethan Hawke just fucking finally like bursts. He's just like, okay, wait. I got to get something out of the way. Like, were you there? You know what I mean? Like, and we all do that. Like, we if in some tenuous situation like that.
She says that she wanted to be there, but she had to go to her grandmother's funeral. And at first I'm sitting there thinking like, I mean, that's kind of bullshit, man. Just go,
and their acting is so good and the dialogue is so good that I sort of believed him when he first lies.
Oh, I 100% did. Yeah. I've seen this movie before and I did.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't remember some of the answers. Last week we were talking about them whether they fucked in the park. And I've seen this movie, and I said I don't think they had sex. And then in this movie, and in the next movie they talk about it, like it's finally revealed. I love that it's ambiguous at first because it's the one ambiguous thing in the first movie, and now in this movie, Ethan Hawke says that they had sex, and Julie Delpy claims that she doesn't remember it.
Yeah.
And later on, it says that was a lie, that they did have sex. She remembers it, and in fact, they had sex twice.
It's all about like defensiveness in romance, putting up your defense mechanisms and trying not to admit that you care as much as the other person or care possibly more.
Yeah, in both of their minds, this is a massively significant thing that happened to them. They are now, for the first time in 9 years, in the presence of the absolute love of their life, who like they know that's their soulmate.
That's right.
And but they don't. It's scary to say that at first. It's sort of something they have to feel out, and over the course of the 80 minutes, because the movie is almost in real time, that they're walking around, like it sort of comes to the surface.
Well, it's very realistic because it's scary to say that, especially given what they've been going through. If they admit that to each other, then there's a part of the romantic mind that would it almost discredits what they've lived all this time. So meaning that, Ethan Hawke has been married. She's with a guy. So to say that you've been in love with that person all that time in a certain way, very much certain way, is insulting to the person you're currently with.
In the back of their brain. I mean, it's Ethan Hawke. Jesse probably didn't think about Celine every day of his life since their first meeting, but it's probably always just been in the back of his brain. Anytime his wife has ever said anything that sort of rubs him the wrong way, or something happened that the reaction was different, or he wasn't cared for the way that he thought he should be, I'm sure Celine's face entered his mind.
Absolutely. And
I mean, obviously he cared enough about it to write the fucking book.
Yeah, right, exactly. And he even says on the boat, I believe, when he says he realizes why he wrote the book. And of course, I have to say, I always thought throughout the movie that is why he wrote the book, because it was like the only way of expiating his love and actually possibly finding her was by, he's a published author, and that is how of course that person, if they're not dead, is going to show up, unless that night was not significant to her. She's completely moved on. She's totally happy with the guy she's with. Then you wouldn't show up to a book signing. But the fact that she shows
That's the
up,
other option. It's one night, 9 years on. And you got to imagine both of them have that fear, that was just a way more significant night in their heads than it was in the other one's head.
Absolutely. And
that would be terrifying. That would be terrifying. And so, Ethan Hawke doesn't really admit that until the boat, and then Julie Delpy, Celine doesn't really admit that until they're in the car. Right. So a guy picks them up from where they get off the boat, and he's going to drive Celine home, and on the way to taking Jesse to the airport. And in the car, Celine has a little bit of a freak out. Like, she almost yells at Jesse, where
she does yell at him.
And it's the first time you also really understand like why she went to her grandmother's wedding and why she went to her grandmother's funeral and what she was feeling in that moment. And I mean, there's massive regret on both sides, and Jesse says that he was there in Vienna for like a few days and he put up signs. And, I mean, it must have been awful. I once, like, in high school, I was like in love with this girl. Oh my God, Vanessa Spica. And we made a date at one point. I haven't really talked too much about this to people. And we were supposed to meet on a street corner. And I went to the corner, and it was raining, Henry, and she never showed.
Oh boy!
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Jesus
I waited there in the rain for like an hour, and then when I saw her again in school, we never talked about it.
Oh wow! But see that's life. That sounds like something that would happen. Like,
but
you
I mean,
would
that
go-
was a high school crush, and I
Yeah,
was waiting
yeah,
in the
yeah.
rain for an hour. The idea that this motherfucker flew to Vienna and waited like 3 days.
Yeah, it's tragic. It's fucking tragic.
That must
man.
be the worst thing that ever happened to him.
It has to be. That would be absolutely devastating, because not only just for him and his feelings for her, but like that would just destroy, you would think, your romanticism for a while. Maybe not forever, maybe forever, but like, just like, oh, fuck love, man. This is ridiculous. This is what it's supposed to be about. And she didn't even show up, you know? It's all bullshit, you know? I mean, it's just...
I do think that it could make someone a more mathematical kind of lover, where the relationships after that are more about, like, is this going to make me feel good? Is, like, it's not about passion and love. It's more about, like, is this tenable?
It's safety.
Is this going to kill me?
Yeah, exactly. More calculated, more security based. Not gonna be. Is this not gonna be just a completely right passionate type thing? Is this guy or woman? Are they safe?
That's right.
They're gonna show up. They're not gonna be cheating on me. They're not, the whole thing. I mean, that could really damage a person. You know, showing up and just being rejected like that with not even a word.
Or that's how it feels anyway.
Right.
I mean, she wasn't rejecting him. She wanted to be there just as badly.
But he didn't know
No,
that.
no, I know.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
In their brains. And it's got to be, like, just as torturous for her, wondering, like, was he there? You know.
Yeah, it's true. The other side of the coin is very true. She doesn't show, but she also doesn't know.
She's there at her grandmother's funeral, the grandmother being a much more significant presence in her life than we were initially led to believe. And she's sitting there thinking about this dude in Vienna. It must have felt like her life was falling into itself.
It's true. We should definitely talk about her for a second. Yeah, I mean, for her.
Well, actually, Celine is a bigger presence in this movie in many ways than Jesse is. She says in the first movie that she worries about being some sort of like cute little French girl. You know, she hates being identified that way. She doesn't come off that way in Before Sunset. I feel like she's a much brassier woman after 9 years. She's louder. She's more outspoken. She's more political. She's working in like sort of environmental stuff, and so like she cares about the world and she cares what's happening, and she's in this crazy worldwide relationship. And I mean, she talks a lot more than Ethan Hawke. I mean, if you counted how many lines they each have in this movie, she probably has double the lines of Ethan Hawke.
Yeah, that occurred to me too. And I also wanted to talk about how last week we talked about our similarities that we both felt to both characters, and I felt that, and it surprised me because again, I haven't seen the movie, so it surprised me. I felt that even more in this movie, like I guess it's an age thing. Yeah. Even though they're still significantly younger than I am now.
Well, they're sort of where I am now.
Right, they are. And in the next movie, they're exactly where I am now. Yeah. But yeah, they're like 31 or 32, I think. In this movie.
Yeah, I think they say 32.
Yeah, but wow, I think of the three movies, this movie was the one where I was a lot of their dialogue and their connections and the way they were expressing themselves really did remind me more of my thought process and stuff like that, and especially in a male-female situation, just the way you talk.
No, I know, same, and there's a relationship in my life that watching these movies I think about a lot because she reminds me of Celine a little bit. And I feel like, and when we had a thing where we were apart for many years, and she was married, and then we like tried again. So I feel like I've had a Before Sunrise and a Before Sunset, and the sunset is way fresher in my brain. Yeah.
I mean, I don't want. Yeah, I don't want to get personal, but yeah. It's,
well, I couldn't. These movies, I can't help getting a little personal.
Yeah.
I really, we covered like Train Spotting, and I talked about like my struggles with addiction a little bit, and I mean, normally we have fun here and we talk about silly, fun movies because most franchises are designed purely to make money. This honestly might be the first franchise we've ever covered where the sequels were made purely for artistic, creative reasons.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And and I've always said, I've always admired your candor on the show and all that. I just, I can't go certain places because it's
that's
too
fine.
much.
I'm not expecting you to, but like
I know.
I just mean like when I'm watching these movies, that particular relationship, and Henry, the one I'm talking about. That's the one that's running through my brain.
Yeah, and for me with Sunrise and Sunset, there's obviously my own things going on with particular people as well, and it's very I think these movies. I mean, that's why I think Sunset for me was in a certain way even.
Was that your cat meowing?
Yes, that's Bins. Everybody,
everyone,
that's
quiet,
Bins.
quiet.
All right.
It's cute.
Yeah, she's adorable. Yeah. Before it's Sunset was even, I feel like, more painful for me to watch. It was very painful for me to watch this movie.
It's a painful fucking movie, but it has such an expressively, gloriously happy ending.
It really does.
It's just as ambiguous as the ending in the previous movie, but
yeah. I mean,
come on, man. You can guess what's about to happen for the next hour, but I mean,
yeah, no. I guess what I mean is the ending of. Let me put it this way. This is how I can articulate it. The ending of Before Sunrise is much more painful and devastating to sit through, but the entire movie of Before Sunset I found to be very, very painful.
Right, because it's an entire movie about two characters picking at the biggest open wound of their lives.
Exactly. And the ending of this movie is just the schematics, leading up to it are just, I didn't see it coming. And I also wanted to mention this earlier. I love the idea in this movie that really it's the stakes are higher on a surface level because he's married and all that, but in the practical time constraint, the stakes aren't that high, which is what I mean is he's going to miss a plane flight. So in the back of my head, the whole movie, I'm going, he doesn't really have to be on that plane, and he fucking knows it. It's just a plane flight.
He's playing so fast and loose with that plane time the entire movie. Like every time, it's actually her that brings it up 2 or 3 times, like, you're going to miss your plane, and he says, like, it's cool, I'll get the guy we'll go on the boat, it's fine. When the boat lets off, he'll meet me wherever that is. And like it all is working out to the point where by the time he goes up to visit her in her cute little French apartment, he can still make that plane. If he sits around and watches her perform a song, which is ostensibly why he's going up, then, that's still okay. He'll miss his plane. But I think the second he steps foot out of that cab, he knows he's not making that plane.
Yeah, and, little things occur to me while I'm watching this movie, too. Like, I mean, but they're big. And that's what makes the movie... The movie doesn't have to explicitly say certain things. Like, money is no longer an issue. Okay, so in the first movie, money was a big issue for Ethan Hawke's character, for Jesse, because he's fucking penniless. He can't, if he misses that fight, he's like can't get back home.
Right.
Now money is not a concern. It's never overtly stated, but that as a viewer, well, fucking big deal if he misses his flight.
The book is successful enough that a chauffeur is driving him to the airport.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't fucking matter if he misses his plane. So it's almost like it's this great kind of MacGuffin where the time constraint isn't as real as it was in the first movie. And that's why I think I like the way it's mentioned, but I was never really worried like I felt a dread in the first movie that I didn't feel in this one, because
I
I
was more concerned they were going to miss the play in the first one than they're going to miss the flight in this one.
Well, yeah, you're right. And I mean, I just I found all those little touches very, very real. They're older. They're true adults now.
And they deal with that in such a real way too. Just like how do I look, that sort of thing. Ethan Hawke says she's a little skinnier, which she is, and
a very funny exchange.
Yeah. And I love she says he looks the same, but then she notices a little line between his eyebrows, and she's like, "Oh, this line is new. It's almost like a scar." I love that line.
Yeah, I do too. I like that too.
And by the way, for the rest of this movie and the next movie, I was staring at that line.
I didn't think about it at all.
Yeah.
That's very funny.
She's absolutely right. That's a new line. I'll say we talked about their teeth in the first movie. I got a teeth update. She's done some whitening. He has not.
This is for Sunset.
Yeah.
Some money. You can do that when you get some money.
Yeah. Delpy got some Crest White strips. Ethan's not caring as much.
He doesn't give a fuck about his teeth. Jesus Christ.
No, he stinks.
Probably got amoebas and shit walking around on there.
Yeah, he's got fucking sand mites like Cousin Greg.
I think my sand mites have fleas. All right. No, is anyone watching that show? If you watch it, you get the reference.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it just aired last night. Okay, before sunset, so he goes up to the apartment, watches her perform her song, which is, I mean, it's actually very good.
It's a great song, and let me just mention.
Why? Can I just say too? We didn't mention this. Can Before Sunset was nominated for an Oscar. Can we have the Oscar theme?
Well, I had taken it down because I didn't think you were going to talk about it, but absolutely,
I forgot.
That's okay. Yes, it's certain. This and Midnight. Yes. So, without further ado, here we go.
Oh. Nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay. Sorry, lost to Sideways. Okay.
Oh, well,
that's fair. Come on, Sideways is great. Yeah, but all right. But here's something I want to talk about. The Oscars have a Best Original Song award for some reason.
Right.
I mean, not that they ever think about it. The winner's always a piece of shit. I mean, with very few exceptions. Lose Yourself and maybe The Thing from Once. But, Oh,
hey, the Bond song.
What, Skyfall?
Yeah, and I think Carly Simon won for a Bond song. Nobody does it.
All right, I'm mostly talking about the modern version of this award.
Oh, no, I know exactly what you mean. They all suck. Yes.
So, why not nominate this song? I mean, they clearly noticed the movie exists because it was nominated for screenplay. Why not nominate this song? It's a beautiful song. It's crucial to the movie. It's very important. And, it'd be nice, Julie Delpy performing at the Oscars. I'm looking at the Oscar nominees for this year. The winner was actually kind of interesting. It was a song from the Motorcycle Diaries in Spanish.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at the nominees here. You've got The Counting Crows nominated for a song they wrote for Shrek 2.
Ugh.
You've got... Yeah, I know.
I mean, both of the Counting Crows and Shrek together?
Yes.
Oh.
You've got a song from the Polar Express called Believe, which I'm sure is moving. And an original Andrew Lloyd Webber song from the Gerard Butler Phantom of the Opera movie. I mean, nominate this song.
I'm retching right now. Oh, my God. Horrendous. Yeah. The thing is, I don't know how this even got a screenplay nod. I mean, but I guess a bunch of screenwriters probably voted for it. But, nobody's going to watch this and look at that and probably
It's
even
not.
occur to
It's
them.
not a bunch of screenwriters. That's the WGA awards. I don't know what won that.
Well,
Probably
no,
Sideways
no.
also.
No, but I mean, they all have votes.
Oh,
in this
yeah,
process.
sure.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. You're right, but I just want to point out that scene also just, all right. I said I wasn't going to get personal, but the whole Nina Simone thing and the interaction. I mean,
After she performs
Jesus.
the song, which by the way references him by name, and then he has that cute joke like, do you just like insert the name of every guy you bring up here?
Yeah, that was very
Yeah.
funny. But I mean, he picks his Nina Simone CD.
Right.
Good move, Jesse. Good
Record,
move, Jesse.
not CD. Oh, it is a CD. You're right. She has like a 6 CD changer.
Yeah. And who doesn't love Nina Simone? I love her. And she puts it on, and she just does this incredible kind of pantomime almost impression of the experience she had seeing her live, and it goes on for a while, and it's just amazing.
It's the kind of thing, girls have done things like this in front of me before, and it could feel so self-conscious and unsexy because there's nothing worse than someone who's like really trying to be sexy. But Julie Delpy is just like relaying what happened, and she's clearly like into the music and is doing this sort of absent-mindedly, and he is just like, I mean, that's it for him. He's done forever.
That would be it for me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, come on. I mean, it's crazy. She does that and then sings him a song she wrote about him.
I thought it was the other way around.
No. It's
no, because I think during the Nina Simone shit,
you're right.
that's when she's dancing
You're
around and stuff, and he says, "I'm gonna miss my plane." Is that the line? That's the last line of the movie, and that's it.
The last line of the movie is, "You're going to miss your plane." He goes, "I know."
Yeah.
Fuck. Oh my God. And there was that moviegoer in me that was just like, please fade to black. Please fade to black. Don't let anything else be said.
They do it.
And it does. It does. It's just perfect. I mean, it's just perfect. Oh my God. I mean, you guys got to do yourselves a favor. You have to watch this movie. I mean, it's just defining. It's just such a great movie, and I just on a technical level, I wanted to point out the acting also just is impressive from like a memorization standpoint, because we get a lot of tracking shots, long takes where like these are not where
they worked on the script together, man.
Right. And
Linklater likes rehearsal. He's one of these directors that likes to like get the actors in a room for like a long time before filming, and so I got to assume that like they had this fucking movie down by the time they got to Paris.
Yeah, I mean you would have to, and this isn't one of those funny. One of these, like David Cross, when he talks about acting, and it's like, acting isn't hard. They yell action, and you go, oh, but my mother cut. That's this is sustained memorization, I mean, it goes on forever. I mean, the movie really is about what, 6 scenes over 80 minutes? I mean,
it's the bookstore, walking around, a cafe, the boat, the car, her apartment.
The hotel. Hey, maybe I nailed it. Say that's 6 scenes right there. Yeah. But yeah, it's just it's great. It's great. And I just want to mention really quick before we move on to the next movie. I even liked when we were talking about earlier whether you don't know what their sort of marital status is I liked when he pulls her onto the park bench, and then there's a line about one of them being hitched, and I remember thinking when I was watching it, like, oh fuck, he just pulled a woman onto his lap, and like,
yeah,
and I'm like, oh wait a minute, he's married, and like I don't remember, like I don't think I even knew that yet. Or if he had not said that.
He hadn't said that yet. But they're just back in that bubble, man. And I'd have done the same thing.
If you are unhappily married, yes.
Yeah. I listen. I am going to take every opportunity that I can to be with the woman that I love. Because, at 33, which is around what Ethan Hawke is in this movie, you come to realize that that's a thing that only happens a couple times.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Henry, it's a 5-star movie. The MVP is the Delpster again.
Me too. 5 stars, but I gave it to Ethan last time, and I actually did that, as I said prior, because sort of it was a really kind of a could have gone either way, and even though, and I felt like maybe Ethan did the stronger, if that's possible. But in this one, I had wanted to give it to Julie Delpy, and it was easy this time. He's just as great, but she does carry a lot. That scene in the car put me over the top for her.
Yeah, that's a great performance, like slowly escalating and rising to the point where she's asking to leave the car.
Yes, really, really good. And so 5 stars. She's my MVP. Just like the prior one, total cop out. Don't have an LVP. What am I?
My LVP's France, America, baby.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
Freedom.
Vichy France.
Mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished. No superhero count.
Good. All right. Is that it for Before Sunset? Should we move on?
We can move on. Yeah.
Okay. Before Midnight. 9 years later, I remember when people were when they were starting to talk about this possibly becoming a thing. I was nervous, and at first, like, Delpy was denying they were doing it. It was very weird. It kind of came out of nowhere. Like, people were expecting it to happen because it was another 9 years, and then when it actually came to pass, it was still surprising to me.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, how often does a movie get talked about and then sequentially fall exactly when it's supposed to take place, and they get everything together? I mean, it was
the kind of thing like Linklater and Ethan Hawke were talking in interviews, like when it was like 2011 or something, like, yeah, it's getting to be around that time. Maybe we should check in with those characters. And I was like, really?
Yeah.
And then they did. I told you, anytime Richard Linklater says he's going to make a movie, he just goes ahead and makes it.
Yeah.
He's the anti-James Cameron.
He's kind of just got clearly, like, I don't know. Does he have the sort of studio money clout that like Woody Allen has?
No, of course not. But
Allen.
Woody Allen needs $15 million for each of his movies. Richard Linklater needs 2.
That's a good point. Because even though actors always take pay cuts on Woody Allen films, they're still rather expensive productions, I guess.
Yeah. Makes a lot of period pieces and shit.
Yeah, true.
All right. Before Midnight, Richard Linklater directing, Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy are his co-writers. It was released May 24th, 2013, Memorial Day weekend. Boy, this is summer counter programming, baby.
Yeah.
Budget of $3 million, an even bigger box office, $23.3 million. Over the years, people discovered this movie. I think that's probably the high end of box office for this kind of a movie, 23.3.
Yeah. And I think, I wonder, like, if what else would account for that? Like, I wonder if maybe just this generation maybe is just more into a movie like this, or word of mouth.
I think at this point it's almost 20 years on from the first movie, and so the first movie's a legitimate classic at this point.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I didn't.
They put these baby out on the Criterion Collection.
Did they?
I think there's a Before trilogy Criterion box set.
Oh wow! Well, I don't own any of them, so now I know. That's how I will own these. Very nice. Yeah, I didn't see it in theaters. I had not seen the second one, but I loved the first one enough from Dan's Boxo videos that on his reco, I guess I checked this out on DVD or something.
I waited for DVD on this one. I think this was when I had Netflix DVD pass or whatever, and I got this like right when it came out on DVD.
And it's also you constantly going to movies.
Well, this was actually, it was post me constantly going to movies at the time. There was like this period of time between like 2012 to 2014 where I like swore off going to the movies.
Well, you didn't go to movies for quite a long time until like 2 years ago, dude.
No, you're right. Yeah, there was a good period of time
Never
where I
wanted
was
to go.
just not going.
Yeah, yeah.
I stand by it. Fuck the movie. My last experience going to the
go all
movies.
the time.
My last experience going to the movies. I had to go out to the lobby and talk to somebody about these two teenage girls who wouldn't put their fucking phones away.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What is this?
I went to go see that movie Hustlers. And I got all intimidating and big. I was like, fucking, put your fucking phone. I was like an asshole to them. And they were still not putting their phones away. You know what? They responded to me, Henry. I asked them to put their phones away. They turned to me. They said, the sound's off.
Ooh,
And I was like,
retort.
I don't care if the sound's off. You're sitting next to me. I'm looking at your Instagram.
We didn't get this story on the show because you briefly mentioned Hustlers on the show about it being a good movie. You did not talk about your experience. Wow.
So I went out to the lobby, spoke to the manager. He sent a guy into the theater to like sit and watch. But then when we got it back into the theater, the girls were gone. And this is what I'm fucking talking about, Henry, with these goddamn movie passes, which get people into movies for free. This younger generation, these kids, their phones, they...
Fucking horrible. It should be
This is the second time it's happened where I've complained to somebody about their fucking phones and then they just left the movie because people aren't there to see movies anymore. They're just there because it's free. They've got the pass and so it kills 2 hours.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
People need content forced into their brains at all time. No one's gonna sit in the park and look at their phone anymore. They've got to be in a movie.
Constant. You know, usually it's not them leaving in my bad experience. It's usually me. I almost always it's me who gives up. You know, fucking Thor Ragnarok. I gave up. I left.
I would never.
I left, you know, and that's when the guy says, do you want to see Justice League? I said, he goes, it's in 3D. I said, no, give me my money back.
Justice League in 3D. I might as well have a lobotomy.
Well, I went home. So, yeah, I chose to just not see anything, and I left. They always beat me, except the guy who ran under my legs. I stayed for that one. I stayed for that one.
Well, you were there for a movie for the podcast.
That's right. I had to. That's true. It was business. But... yeah, I never win the phone fight, man. I just get up and end up moving 1,000 fucking times. You know, I search for the oldest person in the audience. That's the only way you're going to win.
No, the oldest person in the audience, they're yapping at each other.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Are we going to have the winner?
What you need to do is find the nerd. You walk into the movie, you find a fat kid who's alone. He's going to be invested in the movie.
But you were
But you don't even know, man, because now you got to pick your seats before you enter the theater.
I really try to avoid those theaters, man. I really don't.
That's all we got down here, man. This wasn't a nice theater I was in. I was in the Magic Johnson Harlem. They don't even have the movies on the marquee. It's just a Windows logo that's been there for a month.
But you're also in a conundrum, man. You're seeing Hustlers. So what are you going to get? You're going to get teenage girls. That's what you're going to get. You're not going to get fat nerds. I mean, you know, it's not going to happen.
I guess that's true.
You're not going to get the guys that I got during, you know, Infinity War who were behind me, like, explaining the ending to me, going, oh, that's going to be Captain Marvel. Mm-hmm. Captain Marvel is going to be coming. I was like, oh, thank you, guys. I appreciate that, actually.
She's like a superhero, but with boobs.
I like the nerds. They're pretty respectful. You know? Yeah.
Are you kidding me? I can't wait to see how many theaters are shot up when Joker comes out. It's going to be Aurora times 10.
Okay, before midnight, 2016 list.
Came out at number 137 at the box office, right there between Mandela, Long Walk to Freedom. Can I say something about that Mandela movie? No one cared. No one still cares. Why did it have a colon in the title?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't say I don't care about it. I think it was.
Did
probably...
you see it? No. Nobody saw it. I've never met someone who saw that movie. I think all the critics that reviewed it are lying.
Well, they could be. But isn't that one of those things where he's one of those figures where, like, that was an untimely time to put out a movie like that? Like, wasn't that the same couple of years of, like, Invictus and, like, when you get, like, inundated with one...
It was the perfect time for it, man. It was the year of 12 Years a Slave.
No, but what I mean is about specifically him, where, like, you get, like, inundated with a bunch of...
We got Mandela out.
Yeah, like it happens. Like sometimes it'll happen, like with like Martin Luther King, and you'll get like Selma on the heels of the 13th or something like that, and you're just like, well, wait, there's one good movie in here. There's definitely a great movie here. Which one do I see?
I don't think there is. I don't think there's a great movie about Mandela yet.
I don't know. I haven't seen Mandela: Long Walk to Freedom.
No one has. Does it exist?
Is it even a movie?
All right, so that and then Machete. It made a little bit more than Machete Kills. Guess that wasn't a successful sequel. Nominated for a Golden Globe, Henry.
Yes, that it was. That it was. We don't have to do the Oscar theme though, because we've covered that.
But I'd love to hear the Golden Globe theme.
I know. I think that everyone would, and here it comes. And
oh God, this is insufferable.
No, I'm looking at it. I'm looking at all my songs. My God, it's just.
Why do you have these queued up?
Gee, I don't know, because we work just you and I don't have a fucking producer, so I don't know when you're gonna do this shit. Oh, here we go.
It's the GGs, the Golden Globes. It's the Hollywood Foreign Press, mostly French.
Okay, mostly French. Yeah. Julie Delpy was actually nominated for Best Actress in a Comedy.
By
the way, I didn't know it was a comedy.
I just said that.
Yeah.
It is a laugh.
Is it a musical?
Well, Before Sunset is, because remember there's
a song. There's one song. Yeah.
Right, musical.
No, it was nominated for Best Actress in a comedy or a musical, and she lost to Amy Adams for her work in American Hustle.
No.
I agree.
No.
Amy Adams is very good in American Hustle, but
I
Delpy's
like Amy.
Giving her all here.
Yeah,
Delpy's delivering emotionally cathartic work with her boobs out. You got to give credit where it's due. That doesn't happen that often.
It's a lot of that in that scene that we'll get to. Yeah.
It was also nominated for an Oscar, once more adapted screenplay, but this triumvirate lost to John Ridley for 12 Years a Slave.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Very fair enough, but we'll get there.
To 12 Years a Slave, when we cover 12 Years a Slave?
No. No, my feelings on Before Midnight.
Were you not into it?
Well, it's my second viewing. We'll get there.
Okay. All right. Well, let's talk about it. It takes place in Greece. I know that much. Oh, we've got a top 10 list. Henry's holding it up to the screen.
I am, because 2013 is one of those years we don't always get to say, and we always have new listeners down the pike, so they might not have heard this.
I'm working off an old list. I might change this today, but here it is.
It's all right. There might be a couple things I'd do differently, but mine isn't too old. Honorable mentions: Inside Llewyn Davis, Short Term 12, Nebraska, and Mud and Wolf of Wall Street.
All right, I don't feel like doing honorable mentions. Number 10 for me, I'll start, is Prisoners.
All right. Number 10 for me is Francis Ha.
My number 9 is The Place Beyond the Pines.
All right. My number 9 is Upstream Color.
My number 8 is Fruitvale Station.
Okay. My number 8 is Side Effects.
My number 7 is Short Term 12. That's the sequel to 12 Years a Slave.
It's about indentured servants in England, 17th century. Number 7 is The Counselor.
That would be great. A sequel to 12 Years a Slave that's just like a reconstruction movie. It's fucking bullshit. My number 6 is Nebraska.
Okay.
Did I say that already?
No.
Okay, I got lost.
That's all right. My number 6 is Gravity.
All right, yeah. My number 5 is Before Midnight.
My number 5 heavy hitters is, and these are heavy. Fuck, these are heavy hitters. Fruitvale Station.
All right. My number 4 is Francis Ha.
All right. My number 4 is Prisoners.
My number 3 is The Wolf of Wall Street.
My number 3 is The Place Beyond the Pines.
My number 2 is 12 Years a Slave.
And my number 2 is only the second movie on my top 10 that Dan hates, and that is Out of the Furnace.
That's the only one I hate. I don't hate Gravity.
Oh, all right.
You know, it has
I've
its
never really
moments.
heard you give much love at all to that movie.
Technically, it's amazing. You know, I wish if that movie had a different female lead,
you'd be into it.
I think I might be a lot more into it. It
Okay.
just rests so heavily on this, weird idea that Sandra Bullock's a good actor.
Right. The correct idea. All right. And the number 1 movie of 2013 is no. You didn't even say yes. Number 2. You're right. Number 1. You.
Mine is Her.
All right. I like
As
that movie
seen on Ballers, to our Gray Balls listeners out there.
Okay. I like that movie a lot, but it's nowhere near the best movie that year, which is 12 Years a Slave.
Okay, buddy. I needed a stretch. I needed a morning stretch just now.
I hear you, man. I need another pot of coffee. Yeah. All right.
Okay, so Midnight. They're in Greece. He's dropping his son Henry off at the airport after they've had a summer together.
That's right.
We don't know what's been going on in the years hence. It's sort of a funny scene to lead with because on the one hand it's really interesting, but on the other hand it's like, okay, where are you with Celine?
Yeah, I
This has
agree.
been a long enough fucking ellipsis, dude.
Yeah, I agree. It's ellipsis infinity, and this movie breaks with the precedent also of the first 2 movies in terms of including many characters. This is not just the Celine and Jesse show.
That's true. I mean, it is for the second half of it.
Yes, and I think the first time that I watched it, I didn't mind that at all, whatsoever. This time, I think again watching them sequentially, it was a little bothersome. I want to make it clear I still really like this movie off the bat, but it's the things of that nature which we'll get into.
I want to say that too, actually. When we went into this project, multiple listeners contacted me to say that they were excited we were doing it, and everyone I spoke to said the same thing, which was that the first 2 were masterpieces and Midnight was a little bit of a letdown. And to me, that was always crazy. I always thought of I always liked them in ascending order. Like Midnight was my favorite, and then Sunset, and then Sunrise.
Really?
When Midnight came out, I really thought it was a masterpiece. I still kind of do, but now watching them in such quick succession, I'd never really rewatched the movies. It was like actually 9 years between movies that I was seeing them. And so like, I mean, Midnight is really powerful 9 years hence, revisiting these characters, but I feel like watching them, like I watched Midnight the day after I watched Sunset.
I watched them in the same day. One followed right after the other. So yeah.
And so I do kind of think it's the least of the trilogy. Then again, I think that it is really powerful and interesting, and it's the first 2 movies are so romantic that you are just caught in this bubble with these two characters, and you just desperately, like, you're spending 2 entire movies just wanting them to kiss and be in love and spend the rest of their lives together. Like, it really gets you in that mode. And then in this movie, they're fighting and they're talking to other people, and it's not as satisfying, but it's sort of what happens in relationships. I mean, I told you about that one relationship where I had a sunrise and a sunset with her, and like watching Midnight, there was part of me that was like, oh, maybe we'll get a Midnight someday. I wouldn't mind that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess for me, it was multiple things. I think that there haven't been that many great masterpieces about getting to know someone and having this type of relationship as there is in Sunrise and Sunset. There have been many great movies about marriage, and this one is not one of them.
I think it is.
Okay, but what I was going to say was right. It's too truncated. It's 109 minutes, but we get a lot of great stuff, and I think the best stuff is actually in the first half of the movie. I think when they get to the hotel room, it almost feels like we're trying to pile in a lot of resentment, and I get that it's supposed to have been bubbling up and boiling up, but it feels a little, for the first time ever in this trilogy, it feels a little contrived. It feels a little bit like bottled up to the point where it's like, we're getting out all these convenient arguments about custody of the son and should we never have met, and I do all the housework. It's all this stuff that in like another movie about marriage you would get throughout a protracted period of time.
Yeah, it's almost like because it's a movie about conversation, and they've had a whole life together in the years since the second movie. You know, they have 2 daughters together. They are married. She has this job that's in the works. His wife, when he left his wife, she had a lot of resentment towards him, and under cover of night moved their son out to Chicago. It's a lot of exposition to deliver, and
yes.
it's a move. This is a franchise. It is a franchise.
Well,
this is a franchise that's not really about action. It's about conversation. And so when you have that much exposition to deliver, you kind of just have to fit it in the bounds of the conversation. So it is a little bit more, you can see the strings a little bit more than you can in the first 2.
Well, I really think that's right. And I really feel like one of the problems with it is that I don't know that on my second viewing now, very different than my first viewing, very different. I almost kind of feel like I don't want to see the strings. I don't even know that I needed to see. After we close Sunset with, you're going to miss your plane, I know. I don't really know if I need to know how they ended up with all this stuff going on.
That's only because it hurts, man. I think it's a really powerful thing to show what happens now. What happens now? You were in this bubble. You can't exist in that bubble together. Now you have to go off and live a life together.
Which I think is encapsulated very well in several lines of dialogue, particularly the final sequence on the little dock when he's doing the time travel thing. I think that is fucking brilliant. But I think it's some of that stuff in the hotel room. That's the only scene to me in the whole movie that just some of it doesn't play. Some
I
of
love
it's
that stuff.
Yeah, I don't know the scene at the. It's like it's a hard movie to criticize because and that's why I still very much like it, because like the scene in Greece where the whole movie's in Greece. The scene at the dinner table with
the
writer,
sort of writer's retreat.
Yes. It's a great scene and it's really well written, but there's a lot of stuff in there that is like, are we trying to show we don't get a lot of them. We get a lot of the other people, and we haven't gotten that yet. And so it's a strange sequence to throw in the movie.
I know. That's why, in many ways, my favorite sequence in the movie is them driving in the car at the.
That is a great scene,
because that's a really great illustration of what their marriage is now. First of all, I like when he leaves the airport and you first see Julie Delpy waiting at the car, and the music swells a little bit, like so the audience is like, "Oh, they're still together." And then when they're in the car together and the girls are sleeping, that's a really great opportunity for the two of them to really talk to each other, and that's the scene where I really get a sense of what their marriage is and the tone of it and how they feel about each other now. And when he takes the apple from the sleeping kid, and then later when she wakes up and asks where her apple is, I love that.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it's a very adorable stuff that's very genuine and authentic. On a relating level, I think it's interesting because he is my exact age, the character in this movie, but I still relate more to the younger versions. And it's not because I'm not married and I've never been married, because I don't think you have had to be, and I think you would probably agree with me on this. You do not have to have been married to completely relate to the hotel sequence or the certain things they're going through. But definitely, probably not having kids is probably something, I've never had kids. So
I do think that that's an important thing to talk about, Henry. The first two movies mean so much to us because we relate to them. Neither of us have ever been married. Neither one of us have ever had kids. So
that's right.
The specifics of Before Midnight might be a little different. Supposedly a lot of it's taken from the lives of Linklater, Ethan Hawke, and Julie Delpy. But we've never experienced that. To me, Ethan Hawke's 10 years older than I am at this point, or 8 years older, or whatever, and so I'm not quite there yet. I wonder if in 10 years I'll rewatch Before Midnight and connect to it more heavily. I mean, I do connect to it. I actually relate to the Ethan Hawke character in this movie because he's a less cynical person than he was in the first two. I feel like they've traded sides in terms of that. In the first movie, you get Ethan Hawke being very sort of skeptical of the Viennese bum and the palm reader.
Right.
And then you get in this movie a scene where they are in this little chapel together in Greece, and he's like pointing out like that's there because they believed this, and she's just like basically calling it bullshit. I think in many ways Celine has become the cynical one of the two, and Jesse has sort of calmed down a lot. He comes across to me when I got through all my addiction stuff, I really calmed down a lot as a person. Yeah. And not a lot really bothers me that much anymore. I sort of just float through life and everything's basically okay. And if something comes up, like, say, my kid's in Chicago and I'd like to spend more time with them, then, that's something that I can express concern about. But, to me, that's sort of where Ethan Hawke is. Like, he's in this marriage for the rest of his life, and he's pretty content with that, with all its problems and issues, and he's just gonna keep trying, and maybe that makes him a little bit I don't know, like maybe he's not trying hard enough.
Well, yeah,
complacent is the word I was searching for.
Complacent, yeah, and I think that for me, I was definitely it's like it's a weird dichotomy for me personally, because I feel like I'm still, we joke about how I've always, like, you've thought of me as like older than I am. It's always like a joke, but like really I'm always kind of feel like I'm still stuck in certain ways.
I think in many ways, Henry, you at this point in our lives are a much more anxious person than I am. You are.
Well,
a lot of conversations that we have about our personal lives, Henry, are you expressing justifiable concerns to me about things that are happening in your life, and me
Right.
saying like, you know what, give it a week, it'll be all right.
This is true. That is true. But that's true. But what I was going to say was, when it comes to certain subjects, I really related to the 41-year-old Jesse because of my age and because of the relationships that I've had. I get where he's coming from. And so when I think, the younger me is definitely like maybe where Delpy is in this movie, but like the older me gets like him, where it's just kind of like, look, like we're here. This is, we've all been through a lot in our lives romantically. This is what it is. Like, this is marriage. And so in that way, I'm not anxious. But one of the reasons for that would be that I am definitely, and you know this, I'm a fucking hopeless romantic. So I'm always searching for something better. Always. Like, in everything.
But that
right?
to me is not hopeless romantic. Like, for me, hopeless romantic, the way that's manifested itself in my life is just at the beginning of every relationship thinking like, this is it. Oh, I found it.
Well, I don't mean just in relationships. It's very key because I thought about this during the movie. I mean in everything. There's got to be something better. There's got to be something more. Whereas maybe you're at a place where you're just more like, well, this is good. Let's enjoy this right now.
Yeah. For me right now, it's like my job is good. I like my apartment. I like who I'm with. I like, everything's pretty all right.
Right. Yeah. And I think for me, all the way going back to even being like 18, I'm always looking for, it's like there's that thing that Jesse says, I think it's in Sunset, when he's talking about the band that he had.
Oh, yeah.
And wow, that really hit home for me because like, I'm thinking about like, he's saying like, why didn't we just, enjoy the fun we were having at the time, instead of like worrying about like a record deal and it was just like, I was just like, yeah, he's right. I mean, this is what I do. This is what a lot of people do, where you're in the moment that something awesome is happening, but you keep going for like, but
something
what
Lord
about
awesome.
This? That's right. Something Lord awesome. But it's like something else, something more. You know what I mean? And that's a hard thing to work on, but yeah, I know. I'm actually going to let her in so she can just roam around and all that. Yeah. But like, it's funny because you saying that I'm anxious. It's always also because you're a very close friend of mine, and so you see a lot of that side of me. You don't get, unfortunately, anymore those times when I'm just an extremely chill, laid back guy because we don't see each other much.
You are when we're like hanging out and shit. But like, right, I only see you at this point because you live in New Jersey, like once, twice a year.
I know.
I never came out this summer.
Hey man, you should.
Yeah, I know. We didn't talk about it. I got to make a trip out there soon. I'm due.
That would be lovely. That would be lovely. We're due a Red Bank trip.
Yeah, I think that's true. You're, by the way, do a fucking trip here. I have an apartment now. You can stay here.
I know. I've been hearing that from a lot. I know. Anyway.
All right. Anyway, before midnight. So
hey, let my cat in. Continue talking.
Yeah. So they're at this writer's retreat that he's been at over the summer. It's a vacation for the family, and so he's there with a few other people, and we get this long sort of dinner and wine sequence of like, it's this young couple that have only been together for like a year in a long distance relationship. Then there's a couple around their age, but who is a little different. The guy is a bit of a swarthy perv, and then it's an older. They're not a couple.
Right.
Yeah, both of their spouses are dead, and they're just friends.
Yep.
And I thought that was a really interesting scene, like looking at couples at different stages of adulthood. And I mean, it's what are you doing?
Sorry, the cat's walking in front of the screen.
God. All right.
Hey, you wanted me to let her in.
I did. Well, I want to see her. Show me the cat.
She'll be back.
All right.
She'll be back.
Okay,
yeah.
So Henry, that's a very nice scene, and then they go off to spend the night together in this hotel, and that's when the fight really kicks off. They have this long. They're about to have sex, and they get a call from the son saying that he's arrived at his destination. And she answers the phone and doesn't give it to him to say hello.
Yeah.
And that's like, that causes it just like sort of snowballs into this huge argument. And I love that scene. The AV Club called it the scene of the year.
Yeah. Well, there are many great things in that scene. I have dissed it as being my least favorite part, but it's not all. I mean, so much of it I was a little hard to watch because
it's hard to watch because you love them so much.
Well, that's the objective viewer point. It's hard to watch subjectively because I've uttered the words Ethan Hawke has said 1,000 fucking times.
What? Stop whining.
Yes, you're
if
nuts.
There's one
so
thing,
here we go.
Yeah,
you're
if there's
nuts,
one thing I would
whining.
change about you, it's that you constantly bitch and whine and complain at me. I know. We've all felt that.
And the
way.
line about I would change that you keep trying to change me. And oh, here we go. But it's very realistic. It's how it was very. And again,
I used to have that argument so much at a time that I desperately needed to be changed. And these women were trying to change me for the better, and I should have let them.
Yeah, right. Well, that's not how it works.
Yeah,
that's not how it works.
If I went back and met a lot of my old exes that I haven't spoke to in years, I feel like now they'd meet a guy that was like, "Oh, this is who I was trying to get you to be 10 years ago."
I really know what you mean. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. That's why it's hard. Yeah, it's hard to watch that because, but their argument also, they do a brilliant job in that scene though of equate, because at first I was a little on Ethan Hawke's side very much about, well, it's my son, put him on the fucking phone, and don't talk bad.
I was on Ethan Hawke's side a little bit, but when Delpy said the thing that it's this is what happens. Every time you say goodbye to your son, you pick a fight with me. And that's a thing that I used to have a huge tendency of doing, which is if I was feeling anxious or upset about something, I'd pick fights with my loved ones. And I try very hard not to do that anymore because I know that it's a thing I do. And it's a difficult thing to get away from. And so in that moment, I turned coat and I was like, oh, she's right, man. Yeah. He's being an anxious little bitch. He's gotta calm down.
Well, and also I also turned with her a little bit. I went back and forth honestly because I think
that's the point. Because there's no heroes or villains in this fucking scene.
Right.
This is a couple having a fight about a legitimate thing in their life, many legitimate things in their lives, and both of them are right. Everything both of them are saying is correct. But it's a thing that you have to sit down and talk through and work at. Marriage is work.
And I love the whole him
and they're not married, by the way. That's they.
Oh right, yes.
Yeah. They've been together for 9 years, but they are not married.
And I think the way he keeps telling her to be let's have a rational discussion. Oh my God,
that's such a dude thing. That's such an asshole dude thing to say.
It's such an asshole thing to say, and I've probably said it 40 million fucking times.
Yeah,
and it's such a dick thing to say, and you can't even really see what a dick thing it is to say to you. When you're watching this movie, you're like, oh my God.
Let's take emotion out of it and have a rational conversation. I'm fucking Ben Shapiro over here in this relationship.
Yeah, it is a dick move. And also, I was going to say you kind of turn for her for the moment too, and then she gives a little bit more of an illustration of what his ex-wife is actually like. And you don't know that right away. And then you're like, oh my God, that sounds horrendous.
But also what happened to the ex-wife is horrendous.
I was just going to say, you know what he did to her is unforgivable. But like now that it's been so long, and now I understand the ex-wife wouldn't want to speak to Julie Delpy. That makes fucking perfect sense. And it's interesting that she can't understand that. But I also understand Julie Delpy saying, but she's an unhealthy, alcoholic, uncaring person who is being unreasonable about your son.
Can I pitch something to you, Henry?
Absolutely.
A Before spinoff, okay? It takes place in Chicago. Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy aren't in it. And just have it be about Jesse's ex-wife and masterstroke, Henry, Uma Thurman.
Ooh, ma.
God. I had a dream I met Oprah last night.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I just remembered this.
Oprah was on your mind. All right.
I guess so. Yeah, we hung out.
You hung out with her?
Yeah, I think it's because I was looking at the podcast rankings yesterday, and Oprah has a podcast, and it was high on the rankings.
Were we in the same neighborhood?
Oh, yeah. We were 2 slots behind Oprah.
2 slots? Wow.
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
We're only getting beaten by Oprah and Joe Rogan.
Okay, that's what I thought. I did see something on the Podkite that said, I don't know what this means or if it's at all accurate, but in China, I do believe we are the 143rd most popular podcast.
I think I saw that too. I think all in the realm of movie podcasts.
Hey, listen.
Still pretty good.
China has 1 billion people, okay?
Yeah.
That's a fact. 143? Not too shabby.
So hello out there to all of my Chinamen and all of my Chinaman women.
Oh, that's no.
What?
You just said Chinaman. Yeah.
That's not a thing you could say?
No, that's the equivalent of.
I seriously didn't know that was a thing you're not supposed to say. Yeah.
Dan's geographical deficiency showing again, so don't hold it against him. He did not know that Chinaman was something that old white people say. You really didn't know that. That's amazing. Wow.
It's like how my dad says mulatto unironically.
Right. Or like it's worse than saying like Oriental. Like, oh, he's an Oriental.
Yeah, I see that I would never say. That's definitely bad.
Chinaman is very, very bad. So that's okay. You didn't know. But your Chinese fellow brothers and sisters, they love us, and that's great.
I'm
that's
happy
great.
about that.
I'll make up for that little gaffe by saying "Shishen."
Ni hao.
See, I don't know.
Is that Chinese?
Oh God, I think so. I can't remember what it means, but "Shishen" is thank you.
Oh yeah, I think I've heard that.
Yes, "Shishen."
Okay. I'm looking up ni hao. It's hello in Chinese.
All right, there you
go. I fucking nailed it.
He nailed himself out. There you go.
Okay.
Proving once again that you need to have left the United States at some point in your life in order to have any idea about what is right or wrong to say to foreigners.
To foreigners.
Not true. Yeah.
All right, Henry. So they have the fight. She devastatingly leaves the hotel saying, I don't love you anymore. We have this heartbreaking scene of Ethan Hawke alone looking around the hotel room, trying to figure out his next move. And then he goes out and he does a little shtick about how he's from the future and he's been sent back to the past to tell her about this night. It reminded me a lot of their sort of fake phone conversation thing in the first one. Yeah, I really did love that sequence, and I like that Jesse as a character is the type of dude that, like, when he has to, he can pull out that, like, playful, charismatic side of himself and, like, try to get her back on their team. And
well, you know, no, go ahead. Sorry.
It doesn't totally work, but I that's my other favorite scene in the movie is this final one of them at the table together, and this really is like they're not breaking up. She didn't mean what she said. It's just like the heat of battle in a relationship. It's one of these, like, you know, these things where, like, sometimes, like, you go to bed mad in a fight, and then, like, you wake up in the morning and it's just like, wow, that fight felt like, why were we so mad? And it feels like a long time ago, and you're, like, trying to, like, sift through the rubble. And that's kind of what this feels like. I mean, she's still heated, but...
Yeah, I mean, if they wake up the next day and they are that kind of couple who can have that conversation, then that's, like, what it's all about. But, you know, like, if they wake up the next day and can't have that conversation and she's still pissed, you know, I've been there. And
I don't think either of these two people are the kinds of people to bail on this relationship, though. I think at this point, I think before Sunset, the events of that movie made them understand what an important specific relationship this is and how hard it is to find. I mean, with all its faults. And, you know, I think this is a kind of thing where, like, it's going to be a lot of work, but I think both of them are going to put in the work.
And I was just going to say, I think to your point about Jesse being able to come up with these clever, charismatic things, this is something we've really never, I don't think we've really ever addressed. But not to sound too, you know, snobby.
What, are you going to talk about how clever and charismatic you are now?
No.
Okay.
Kind of. I was going to say that these characters are so intelligent that this is really what drives a lot of the movie. Besides just
that's true. These are movies about
highly intelligent people, and so these movies. This is the snobby part. Not everybody's going to watch these movies and like them, and I think that because they are operating on a very high intellectual level, and I'm not saying they're not relatable to every couple, but I don't think they are in certain ways. You know what I mean? I mean, they are.
Of course, I know what you mean, and you know, I'm not complaining about this, but this is another thing where a lot of times when artists write about relationships and marriage, they're always making the characters artists because that's what they know. I mean, this is a very personal movie, so they're going to write what they know. So Ethan Hawke is a writer, and they're at a writer's retreat in this movie. That's not a normal situation for most couples. Right. Also, these are three movies about two characters talking to each other, and so you've got to imagine that the thing that turns them on about each other the most is their intellectual variety of conversation.
That's right. That's it. Yeah. He said it, folks. Yeah.
I am going to give this movie a 4.
That is my rating.
Okay.
Yeah. That's my rating, 4. Yeah, I didn't waver on it either. I just was right there.
I wavered a lot.
Did you?
This is a 5 for me in my Letterboxd. If you go back and look at my grades, I'm gonna make this one a 4. As great as it is, I do think it's the least of the 3. I will say my MVP is Ethan Hawke. I think Ethan Hawke has grown into a really spectacular actor. I think he's doing the best work of his career right now. Honestly, I think his 3 best performances ever are probably this, Boyhood, and First Reformed, which are all in the last 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, he's also my MVP. I just felt like the sheer amount of relatability, I guess, and I liked also, like you said, like he's getting better and better. I do disagree, as you already know. I think he's been at this point for a very long time as an actor. I think he's since
I think he's worked at his craft legitimately though and gotten better. Like, listen, I praised his performance in 1995's Before Sunrise, but I feel I think he's one of these guys that needed to be older. He had to get out of that sort of ingenue phase of his career.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like from Before Sunrise and Gattaca, he's Ethan Hawke, and you're like, I like Ethan Hawke, he's cool. But for me, the turning point was 18 years ago with Training Day, because I remember in the theater going, holy fuck, man.
He's great in Training Day, but I think Ethan Hawke now could play the Denzel part.
Yes, good observation. Yeah, he could. You're right. He absolutely could. Yep.
All right, LVP, that pervy guy. It was a little too much screen time for him. I thought he was amusing at first, and then I got sick of it.
You got sick of it. All right. I'll go with him because of the people of the characters.
I love the old people so much, and I love the young people so much.
So did I, and I actually loved the swarthy guy's wife. I liked her a lot.
She was fine.
No, I liked her a lot. Yeah, that's fine. 4 stars. Another 0 superhero count.
Love nothing more. Okay.
Yep.
That's it. Oh, so rank them. I'm. I went into this saying 3, 2, 1. Now I want to say 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I went into this with
maybe 2, 1, 3.
Well, do you want to hear mine, or do you want to?
Go ahead.
Right. So I struggled with this. I didn't have a ranking, obviously, before I went in. And I thought I was going to go 1, 2, 3. And that's what I had written last night. And then last night, not today, not this morning during the show or anything, I changed it. And it really is the way I'm going to go. And that is 2, 1, 3.
I'm going to join you on that.
Sunset, sunrise, midnight. Really, you are.
I am. One other thing about Midnight, by the way, is if Midnight was 80 minutes, it might be a 5. It's an hour and 50 minutes almost. Like, that's too long for one of these.
It's too long, and like I said at the very beginning of our coverage of Before Midnight, it still doesn't feel like certain conversations are long enough. So I feel like if they would have pared down some sequences of the groups, and made more delving into what they really want to talk about, then I think it would
Although
work better.
You do get a little bit of insight into them from the way you've never seen them talk about each other to other people. I thought that was kind of interesting.
It is.
But yeah, I mean, but Before Midnight's a full half hour longer than Before Sunset.
Yeah, and I think the Sunrise has it's a great movie in every way, but there's something about Before Sunset where even just the craftsmanship of the directing and the pacing and the acting and then the ending, it all just it's just devastating. It's just so good. Even though it's the happiest in a way of the movies, it's still, I was very angst-ridden during Before Sunset, and in a good way. And I feel like it's the movie I personally related to the most. So it's my favorite one, and I think it's the best one.